Well, I guess now we come to the main event of what we've been all waiting for. At least I was waiting for it to be over, so there was some waiting going on. AEW WrestleDream. Oh, a dream has been a dream. On October the 1st from one of those fine arenas up in the Seattle, Washington area. And Brad, again, it was legitimately 5.5 hours from start to finish because they added a 30-minute window to the normally 1 hour pregame show. Their 0 hour was 0.90 minutes, right? They said they started at 6:30 Eastern. I didn't
I didn't
watch the
realize
whole
that.
goddamn thing.
I started watching, or at least having it on the TV at 7, going in and out until the main show. I didn't know it started at 6:30.
Their advertising, at least somewhere, was a 0 hour, 6:30 Eastern time, 3:30 out there, whatever the fuck. But nevertheless, they did an hour and a 4 hour paper. It was 5 to 5.5 hours, 14 matches, endless repetition. It would not be over with. And when they, on about 3 different occasions, they had a really good match or something going that was just swell, and they didn't know when to leave well enough alone and had to go too far. And that's why it seemed like to me that it would never stop. And I wanted to see and did watch Josh Barnett and Claudio Castagnoli on the 0 hour, the match that they announced and added the night before on Collision. Apparently, I guess because it's Josh Barnett's hometown too. He just drove down and wanted to do something, I guess, is how that got put together. But these 0 hour matches, why would you do this to this crowd that's already going to sit through 4 fucking matches or 4 hours of pay-per-view matches? The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn against Shane Haste, Mikey Nichols, and a guy legitimately named Bad Dude Tito. And that was for the 6-man belts. And then Dino Douche against Nick Wayne, I guess, because it's his hometown, so he had to work. And again, Booker of the Year, Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty, Diamante, and Mercedes Martinez against Satoshi Kojima, Keith Lee, Athena, and Billy Starks in an 8-person and mixed man and person and woman match or whatever. And then in the middle of all this is poor Josh Barnett and Claudio Castagnoli. And they worked a grappling match legitimately. And it was like in the middle of Rocky Horror Picture Show, suddenly they announced, ladies and gentlemen, Pavarotti with a selection from The Merchant of Venice. It was as far away from what this crowd would have come to see as anything you could possibly imagine. And they were respectful to it because it was Claudio. And I guess they're smart enough to know that Barnett is somebody. But it was grown men working a grappling contest in the middle of however many 4,000 people or whatever that came to see the kids on the trampoline. And you could tell they need educated on something like this. It needed to be an issue, some type of rivalry. They needed to explain ahead of time what they were going to do, the rules of their contest. Because it was just kind of so polar opposite of anything else that AEW does. Did you see it at all?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I'm not a big Claudio fan, but I thought it was good. It was a different kind of match, but it was done so serious, and the fans treated it respectfully that it worked.
Yeah,
other than Moxley on commentary.
Well, I was going to get to that, and I didn't say it was bad. What I was saying was that it looked like a lot of the people just didn't know what to make of it because they're like, wait a minute, they're trying to make us believe this? You know, it was just so odd for an AEW show. But they put Moxley on commentary like now he's goddamn Joe Rogan for the MMA-influenced people on the roster, and he was cussing And, and just droning on and slurring and whatever the fuck he does. And they were going to him like he was a mixed martial arts expert or could convey that verbally. And at one point during the pay-per-view, when he was out there with, I think, another one of the BBC matches, Nigel had to tell him take a breath, which was a nice way of saying, shut the fuck up and let us get a word in edgewise. But anyway, so that was the 0 hour. And the pay-per-view opened up with the only smart motherfucker in this company. MJF knew, put me on first. I'm going to lay this match out, and hopefully these guys will be able to follow it. I'm not going to get hurt. I'm not going to look like an idiot. And I'm going to get out of there before I get any on me or before it goes any longer in this fucking marathon and the people's enthusiasm is worn down. And that's exactly what he did. He's Leonard Bernstein. He is playing the fans and the opponents and Tony and everybody else like a goddamn fiddle. And no matter what kind of stupid angle they put him in, when he's out there where it's left up to him rather than these buddy comedy videos or whatever, or he's in a match that he'll figure out a way to make sense out of it. It's like watching Lawler work the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis with some green football player. He'll just work to that guy's ability level, and he'll come up with some shit that makes the people pop, even though nothing's fucking happening. He's a genius. And he cut the promo to lay it out. He set up the deal of the match, got to defend the belts, keep him for my good buddy Adam. And then he tells the people what he's going to do. He's going to body slam the fat guy, and he's going to stick Vinny's head up the fat guy's ass. And then they put the match together based on him trying to do that. And it was great. And they got a little heat on him, and then, Vinny tried to use the chair, but MJF grabbed his nuts and then made a comeback and body slammed Dutch, and the people hit their feet and gave him a standing ovation for a body slam and chanted holy shit. And then he ran Vince's head into Dutch's ass and hit the kangaroo kick and the heat seeker on Dutch 1, 2, 3. So again, despite the ridiculousness of having the AEW World Champion involved in this whole thing that we've talked about earlier, in an opening match against an unknown team that's just started, but he made it work to at least, it didn't sell any pay-per-views, didn't draw any money, it didn't sell any tickets, but he didn't look like a goddamn idiot. He got away with it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought MJF did good. The big guy in Vincent and Dutch, I don't know who's who. The big guy
Vincent has the dreadlocks. Dutch is the big fella.
Dutch is pretty good. For a big guy, I mean, just watching him move in this one match, using this match as an example, I haven't seen him before. He was moving pretty good.
Well, he reminds me of Big Bubba, and even used a boss man slam. He's a big guy that doesn't have a big, a muscular physique, but he moves nimbly and he's got weight and he can put stuff behind it. So I just wish they'd quit cutting out paper dolls on their videos, and maybe I'd be able to get on this train. But otherwise, that was MJ, and he gets to get out early and beat the traffic. But I'm constantly nervous that sooner or later they're going to give him something or make him be involved in some situation that the rest of these fucking idiots are going to fuck up, hurt themselves, do something. It's going to fucking hurt him too. He can't do this forever. He's up on a tight wire. One side's ice, the other's fire.
We'll probably play it on the drive-thru because we've gone long today, but there's audio from the media scrum after the event from a few different people I want to play you, but MJF had some comments about that, which are very interesting.
Well, at least we don't have to hear Tony scrum today. What Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling Championships were on the line in the match between Eddie Kingston and Shibata?
I think it was the Ring of Honor World Championship and the Openweight Strong Championship.
Openweight Strong Championship. Well, Shibooty. I think they transplanted Tony Khan's brain. Again, Eddie Kingston has an everyman appeal, and he's got the wise ass mouth, and he comes off natural in a lot of situations. But now I think we've established, and I like Eddie. Goddamn, he's not going to do anything but these fucking modern indie style, Japanese strong style, whatever the fuck matches. It's just that's what we're going to get. And they locked up, and then Shibata stood there and let Kingston hit him over and over, and then Kingston did the same thing. And then he asked Shibata to kick him. And so Shibata did and covered him, got a 2 count. And at that point, the announcers were saying, this is going to be strong style. And I wrote, AKA phony shit, and a good time to pick up some time. They ought to call it Japanese mark style wrestling. I fast forwarded to the finish. The finish was they were standing there hitting each other. And then Kingston hit like 3 finishes on him in a row and covered him 1, 2, 3. Did I miss any subtleties?
No, this was not a match for you.
Who was this a match for?
For fans of that style of wrestling. Fans who are into that style of wrestling.
Good. Well, then they saw it 8 other times in the course of the night. For the TBS title, Julia Hart versus Kris Statlander. And again, now Julia Hart has had more matches this week than Moolah had in the same week in 1972. But it looked here like that somebody told him, go as fast as you can, do no wrestling moves whatsoever, just fight and do unrelated shit to each other back and forth. I'm talking no wrestling moves like arm drags, hip tosses. They just did shit to each other back and forth. And then Statlander won with 2 tombstones in a row. So now we've established that not only Julia Hart just started wrestling on the program regularly a week or 2 ago. We've just seen a couple of matches. Now she's already been beat, but it took 2 tombstone pile drivers to beat a 125-pound, 22-year-old blonde girl. Help me, Brian.
You keep saying that. I don't know what you want me to say. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. Julia Hart's moonsault is incredible.
Again, yes, but they need to have somebody, if they're going to do this, somebody putting their matches together to play to their strengths, but to tell a fucking story instead of just doing... They tried to fight. They put a lot into it. They worked hard. It was supposed to be a fight, but my God. Maybe they cut their time. They just started and didn't stop, but there was no time to let anything sink in. It just went back and forth until 2 tombstones. And boy, does Julia Hart need to teach everybody else her neck routine. Because just think, if you could do that to your neck where you could get tombstone pile driven twice in a row, and that's the only thing that got the 3 count on you. All right. But you know, as soon as I finished looking at Kris Statlander and Julia Hart, you know what I started thinking about? No. I started thinking how wonderful it would be to dig into a good box of awesome.
That's what you started thinking about during this match?
Right as soon as the match was over, I said, I got to get into an awesome box. And boy, that's when I went back to the box of awesome that our friends over at Bespoke Post and boxofawesome.com sent me last week. Because they send you one every month, but it hadn't been a month, it's only been a week. So I dug into my box of awesome again to relive the greatness and the awesomeness that was my box delivered from boxofawesome.com. Brian, you remember what was in there, the tasting glasses from Maison Foraine. Do you like the way I pronounce that? See,
Oh, yeah.
I took a little French in school. Because it was Kentucky's big with the bourbon down here. This is bourbon country, so they sent me a box of awesome to do with an interest in bourbon. And I got the tasting glasses, and I got I thought it was a brown nosing kit, and I was going to forward it to you, but then I saw it was a bourbon nosing kit where you learn to train your nose and your nostrils and your scentile glands to identify all the various scents in the good bourbons, the oak and the black pepper and the barley and the Harley and the Farley and all those other things that are in the brown bourbon nosing kit. And of course, the olive oil and organic sourdough flatbread bites that you nosh on while you're sitting there sipping your bourbon and sticking the pepper up your nose and making yourself sneeze. That was in my box of awesome. And of course, your boxes of awesome have ranged from those knives that you are disturbingly compiling for some reason, all the way to a grow your own, not that, but pizza kit where you can actually grow from Mother Earth the ingredients in your bland, meatless pizzas that you eat. It's all a part of Box of Awesome, and it's all a part of whatever you might be interested in, folks. Whether it's knives or drinking or eating or whatever, you just go to boxofawesome.com and you take their quiz. And your answers will help them pick the right boxes of awesomeness for your individual interests. And then they send you a new box every month across a ton of different categories. And you pay only a fraction of the actual valuation of these items, and you're supporting small businesses. Brian, did you know they did a survey? 90% of everything that comes in your box of awesome is from a small business. And they've actually gone to these places and measured. You can't be more than 1 story high, that's 12 feet, and you can't be more than 1,400 square feet of floor space, or elsewise, they'll just throw the shit back at you. And they will not send it to their customers because they want only small, tiny, almost microscopic businesses, holes in the wall even. That's who they're helping, and you'll be supporting those folks too. And they're fine people. They're very small people also. Many of the proprietors of these small businesses are only about 3.5 feet tall. See, now I know you've just aspirated and died because you're not disagreeing with anything. Folks, again, go to boxofawesome.com, enter the code JCE at checkout for 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up. Boxofawesome.com, enter the code JCE, 20% off your first box of awesomeness from boxofawesome.com. And folks, now if someone will call 911 for an emergency ambulance to pick up Brian Last, who has apparently lost consciousness. Are you there, Brian? Brian?
I'm here. I'm listening to you.
Brian.
I'm listening to you talk about all these wonderful small businesses. And again, we encourage everyone to check out the Box of Awesome, Bespoke Post. We get it. We like it. One more time, what's the promo code, Jim?
Boxofawesome.com, code JCE, 20% off. And they're very small, tiny proprietors of these small businesses.
That's right.
All righty. Well, you know what was up next, Brian, and I want to be equal. I want to treat everybody equally. And the 4-way tag team match where the winners get a shot at the tag team title came up next, and I didn't watch the single match that they had out of it. So I figured I'd skip this one too. The Guns against the Lucha Brothers, against Hook and Pockets, against the Buckaroos. I feel bad that the Guns have to be, inserted into this foolishness. But at least I felt like with Pockets and the Buckaroos and Penthouse and Felix all in the same match, it's economical. I can skip them all at the same time. So that's what the finish was. The Buckaroos did 100 things. And then Nikki slipped on a spinning flip and fell on his head and jumped up and clotheslined the guy anyway. And then they beat Penthouse with the shitty-looking double knee lift that they do, 1, 2, 3. Again, or were there nuances that I was unaware of?
No. Were there any fans that reacted like this was special? Is there any fan that is still excited about the idea of seeing the Young Bucks and FTR anymore? This went from being a match that people anticipated to, really, again? I don't think anyone wants to see this. It was clear after Wembley that something more was going to happen because they all kept doing stuff together. And now we're going to get at least match 4, maybe match 5.
But that's the thing. But now, 2 out of 3 was fine. But now it's going to be 4, and if the Buckaroos ain't going to go down 3-1, so then that would necessitate the 3 out of 5, which the Buckaroos may very well win. And does anybody want to see that anymore? Because no. Okay. I think, honestly, my favorite match, just because of the reaction, came up next with Hangnail Page and Swerve, of course, with Prince Nana, Swerve Strickland in his hometown. You could tell when Page came down the aisleway that the crowd was thinking, here comes the goof with the black cloud over his head. And Swerve was in his hometown, and Nana comes out dancing like Denny Terrio, and the people are yelling Swerve's house, and he looks like something. And it was another situation where the crowd decided we like the heel and we don't like the babyface. We don't give a fuck how it's been presented. But they didn't change anything about their match either. That not even subtly, like a Michaels and Hogan type of thing, or whatever the fucking case, or the Rock and Hogan, I should say. They just did the match where every time the heel cheated, the fans cheered, and every time the babyface showed fire, the people booed. And it was like watching wrestling in a funhouse mirror, because it wasn't even like they were supporting an individual person, but since they changed really nothing about their match, everything that the guy that they supported was doing was making him look like an underhanded prick. I mean, does that make sense to you? What I'm trying to say?
Well, I think it also ties into the previous match. The Young Bucks won. The Young Bucks did not get a big reaction coming out there. The Young Bucks were not really cheered by the fans. There was not a big pop for their winning. There was not a big smattering of boos for their winning. It was kind of indifference. And I think Adam Page has put himself in the position where he gets that kind of reaction too. He's going against someone here beyond hometown crowd. Charismatic. Seems pretty cool and happening. Pretty good in the ring. Why would you cheer Adam? Adam Page has done nothing to make himself cheerable unless you were already predisposed to liking him from 3 years ago or something.
Unless you've been having some type of therapy classes for alcohol and depression, then you could identify with this sad, drunken, fucking alleged cowboy from Virginia who drives a fucking electric car or whatever. Anyway, the match was a good match. Nothing out of the ordinary for AEW. Nothing particularly rotten or whatever the fuck, except, again, at one point, Page gave Swerve the dead eye on the metal stairs, and it wasn't the finish, and there was no count out. But then it was hilarious watching Swerve basically try to break Page's arm and the people cheering it. And, just about the time that it got long, Page hit a buckshot and covered, but Nana put Swerve's leg on the ropes, and the referee ejected Nana. And the crowd booed. And while the referee was with Nana, Page went for the buckshot, and Swerve hit him with the title belt, and it covered him and got a 2 count. Now, what the fuck? Besides the fact that they created a situation where the referee ejected the heel manager for interfering and the crowd booed that decision, and then the crowd cheered the babyface getting hit over the head with the title belt, that wasn't the finish. Then Swerve hit 2 more kicks and some kind of flippy move and then just beat him 1, 2, 3. And I wrote, you got to be shitting me. They had the finish, the belt shot. That's the one. If they weren't going to change the rest of the match, they shouldn't have changed. He was still fucking him like a heel, but they were going to like it anyway, but at least he fucked him. They're so stupid that they do a finish that will give everybody what they need. The heel and the guy winning goes over. The baby face has an out. The people are up. It gets a pop. And then that'll be a 2 count, and they'll do 3 or 4 more moves and just beat a guy flat. And Brian, I swear to God, in any company, in any territory, in any period of wrestling until maybe maybe only 10 years, if you had a baby face that was really over or thought he was being featured as a top guy, and you went to him and said, okay, you're going to hit your fucking finish and you're going to cover me, but my manager's going to put my leg on the ropes and break the count. And while the referee is kicking him out, you're going to come at me for another one, and I'm going to hit you with the title belt behind the referee's back and cover you and count 1, 2, 3. They probably would have gone for that because the manager interfered. The referee was distracted. The heel cheated. Everything's right there. But if you said to him, I'll hit you with the belt and cover you, and then you kick out. So I'll get up, I'll kick you in the head 2 more times, I will pick you up and hit a move where I drop you on your head again and just pin you 1, 2, 3. The fucking babyface would laugh at you. And he would say, are you out of your fucking mind? No, you're goddamn not. Because then he just beat him flat. It's fucking insane. They're doing this all over the place. It makes no sense. Your thoughts on this contest?
I actually enjoyed it, but mostly because I was really getting into Swerve. And it was kind of cool the fact the fans completely rejected Adam Page.
Yes.
I think the problem in general is there were too many matches where guys get hit with devastating finishers and kick out, and then it'll happen a second time, and they kick out, maybe even a third or a fourth time, and then the thing they finally get beat with, even beyond the psychology of what a heel or babyface should do, the move they get beat with doesn't even look as devastating as any of the things they got hit with before it.
Nowhere near any of the other shit they've survived. They just ran out of shit to do, so it was time.
Booking-wise, though, I'm glad Swerve got a win. I think Swerve is clearly a guy on the way up and clearly a guy the fans, not just in Seattle, want to get behind. And Tony's smart to do something with him right now.
They did miss an opportunity, though. These people hated Page so bad. If they'd have put him over, we might have seen somebody hit the fucking ring. It'd be refreshing to see that level of heat these days. I think they probably might have taken him out in the parking lot and fucking used him for a piñata. I mean, when the heel wins a shoulder tackle exchange and the fans pop for it, it's anyway. Page has made his own bed. Now he can certainly not sleep in a fine Helix mattress. Okay, I bet you watched Ricky Starks versus Wheeler Useless, didn't you?
Not so much, because
okay,
nothing even against this match, and I'm not a Wheeler Yuta fan, and he looks ridiculous. You want to talk about, you brought up Jay White earlier during the Dynamite review, that he's a little bit taller, but not completely dissimilar to the Adam Cole build. Wheeler Yuta's even worse. He has like no muscle. He's just skinny. Just tall and skinny with long arms. Long, skinny arms with no muscles on them.
He looks a bit like somebody was almost ready to fill up one of those Weeble Wobbles with some sand, but they didn't have enough sand.
Yeah, if you put sand in that Weeble Wobble, it would look like Superhuman. That's why.
There you go. Yeah.
But I like Ricky Starks. I wasn't going to watch this, and I needed a break. It was a long show. I said during this show, after one of the matches I liked, I said on Twitter, I really wish they would bring back intermission. I'm not even joking. It's not even a joke. There needs to be an intermission on these shows. It's too long for me, and I'm home.
Well, yeah, I mean, those poor people in the arena, but even they used to have an intermission on early pay-per-views for the people at home to get up and piss or get a goddamn soft drink or something.
That's right.
But the plumber was back on color, stumbling through that. You can't take Wheeler seriously. You can't listen to the plumber ramble. And honestly, in there was Starks, who looks like an athlete. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but Wheeler's got the beard, the lack of physique, the unflattering tights. He looks like a recently released political prisoner. Somebody's been mistreating him in some fashion. He escaped somehow across a border.
He's their version of Eric Watts. He's a guy being pushed beyond where he should be because certain people there really like him and want him to be their guy that gets pushed. But there's nothing that shows that it's there now with him.
Well, Starks won at least. So they made the right decision there. And then the dream match on WrestleDream that was billed as a dream match, the two best technical wrestlers allegedly in the world. I say allegedly. Danielson I'll buy is one of them. I'm still alleging the other one. Sabre Jr. and Bryan Danielson. Do you remember when the best British wrestler in the world was Billy Robinson and he looked like he could fucking snap every goddamn appendage on your body?
He could.
And he could, yes. Okay, even if Sabre Jr. could, I'd laugh if you suggested that he might try. He looks like a fucking insurance salesman with a bad bleach job. There is none
he
of
used
these...
He used to be even skinnier. This is him with weight on him.
What?
Oh, yeah. No, if you'd seen him like 4 years ago, it was even... He stood out even more as being really, really skinny despite his talent. This is him with weight.
But how come in a previous generation, all the guys that were in their late 20s and early 30s looked like they were 40, and now all the guys that are almost 40 look like they're in their fucking late teens, early 20s? Terry Gordy looked like he was fucking 30 when he was 19. Nobody is intimidating, and here's the thing. Again, like I said, they needed with Barnett and Claudio, not Jim Barnett, but Josh Barnett. With
my boy.
Oh, yeah, my boy. With him and Claudio, they needed to educate the people on the style of wrestling they were going to do, and they also needed to have an issue, and Barnett just can't, show up because it's his hometown. Well, he did, so he can, but and for the people to understand what's going on, because it's not a wrestling crowd anymore, especially these people that come to see the trampoline fucking routine. But with Sabre Jr. has been on their television, twice or three times? A couple of times he's talked. I think they had him in a tag team match. Did he get a single win one time? Again, he doesn't look like anything visually if they don't allow him to get over by showing that he's allegedly the greatest technical wrestler in the world, and you just hear that said. Why the fuck do you believe it? So this was just cold matches for Tony Khan's sensibility with people that the majority of even of his own television audience have not seen. And there's the plumbers out there for color again. That's where Nigel had to almost say, shut up. Take a breath, John, and let me just ask you this.
I would like to know from the AEW fans, was that a fair trade-off? You get the dream match, but you also have to get Moxley on commentary.
I don't see how anything about that can be fair. But, on this show, they're going to have a good match here for the style that they're doing. But Danielson was wasted. This is not a marquee match. Sabre Jr. means nothing. MJF was wasted. Moxley, thank fuck, wasn't even on the card, but he's a name there. Cole is injured. They neutralized or marginalized a lot of their top talent in meaningless matches with no issue, no grudge, no reason for happening. And in some cases, a cold match amongst top guys is not the worst thing. Except then you go it one further by having a cold match with somebody on one side of it that's never even on your fucking television. So it's a cold match with a nobody. So, and then Sockface started comparing this to Inoki versus Billy Robinson, that famous 60-minute draw.
He was unbearable all night, Excalibur.
Well, because he's in his element here. He pleasures himself to the Japanese indie wrestling. And then they stood there and let each other forearm the other one. And if this was a dream pro wrestling match, I'd have loved to give me one tackle, drop down, leapfrog, hip toss, kick off, arm drag, drop kick, bump to the floor. Give me some fucking wrestling. Don't give me the same shit that everybody else tries to do these days. And it was executed better. Danielson's great. And little Q-tip boy Zack Sabre can do all the moves. But he doesn't look like a salty old fucking, Welsh coal miner doing it. He looks like a fucking, like I said, a British life insurance salesman with a bad bleach job. And they're doing, if neither guy was over, this was a well-done, modern-style cold match that people would have sat on their hands for. Danielson is over, so that saved it. But there was no heel per se or babyface that the fans just like Danielson. But again, lots of kicks, lots of the mat wrestling. Danielson and MJF was a classic. This was laborious because people didn't care about half the fucking competitors. And again, they were doing the same thing that a lot of these other guys try to do these days. They just did it a lot better. But then finally, Danielson hit the knee and got a 2 count. So he got up and did the same thing again and got a 3 count. Well, am I being too hard?
Maybe. I thought it was really good. Again, I'm not taking away. You're 100% right. This may not be the best use of Danielson. This is not a big money match to people who aren't in that bubble. Zack Sabre Jr. hasn't been built up well on TV. This match doesn't seem to mean anything in the general scheme of things in AEW, but I'm sure there'll be a rematch at Wembley or something down the road. But with all that said, I enjoyed it. I went into it knowing what it was going to be. It was going to be these two guys trying to do a really good grappling match. And it was. I liked a lot of the mat stuff.
I'm not even saying it sucked, and I'm not saying I didn't enjoy some of it. They could lighten up on the goddamn kicks, couldn't they, if they're going to have a wrestling match? But I guess that's Danielson's gimmick.
Yeah, and if it's an Inoki tribute show, might as well have the kicks.
Might as well. In that case, somebody should have had a fucking prosthetic chin.
At the media scrum, I will say, Tony Khan was wearing a scarf like Inoki, the red scarf. So he was obviously in the Inoki zone.
Have you seen one of the clips that's been on Twitter? People been sending it around when Andre worked with Inoki. The little rib that Andre did, he did the old deal where he grabbed Inoki's head with his chin down on his thigh and he did the stomp thing. And then Andre sold his own thigh because of the size of Inoki's chin.
I did not see that, no.
But anyway.
But I thought this was a good match. Again, not taking away from anything you said, which are all valid points. Just as a match, I enjoyed it because I didn't think of it as anything more than that.
I just wish that I could get lost in it a little bit more if all of the British world of sport technical masters didn't look like they were fucking 14 years old. And it looked like the world of sports stars of days gone by, or the American transplants, the Robinsons, the Thorntons, the Charleses, the fucking Foleys, the goddamn, not Mick Foley, but John Foley, the fucking Ted Heath. Ted Heath was a salty looking old bastard. You'd think he could fucking stretch you.
But there's a difference between tough and rugged kids going to a local gym and learning how to hook versus kids who grew up watching WWE deciding they want to get into wrestling. And then some of them eventually discover Japanese tapes and they want to do what they see there. It's not like, I went to Wigan and I learned the Wigan style. No, there's none of that.
So now instead of getting Tommy Billington, we get Tommy Two-Tone.
Very good. Very good.
All right. So the 6-man tag team confrontation was up next with Jericho, Kenny Olivier, and his life partner, Kota Ibushi, against Will Ostrich, Sammy Guevara, and our friend Take a Shit with Don Fallis. And can anybody now realize that seeing Take standing next to Ibushi amplifies how bland and generic and nondescript Ibushi is? He looks like somebody fucking imported an amateur Japanese swimmer into the fucking match. Take a Shit looks like a goddamn star, and he's so athletic, and he moves like greased lightning.
I agree, and the other thing is, Ibushi has, what do you call it, moop face? Just permanent moop face.
Moop face, yeah. Just woo. And at least they did some wrestling here. Even Kenny did some arm drags. What the Ostrich had the round blotches all over his body. And that used to be a thing in Inoki's TVs. You would see his young guys in matches had the round blotches all over their body back in the mid 80s. What is that procedure they're doing?
I think it's cupping, where they use, suction to try to bring blood to an area of the body that needs help.
But why the fuck would this fucking white boy from goddamn Australia or wherever be doing that?
England.
He's the one from England.
Wait, we just saw him have the big match at Wembley.
The other guy's the other one from Australia.
Which other guy?
Wherever all they're, I don't know where they're from. The point is, he's some fucking fancy Dan talking British or Australian white boy. What's he doing the Japanese cupping treatment for? Just to look like he's a Japanese wrestler?
Well, no, there are other athletes outside of wrestling.
Yeah, he's the only one that shows up with big round blotches all over him. It's cosmetic business. He looks like he's got the leprosy.
And I'll give him credit. Out of all the British wrestlers or even the Australian wrestlers you accuse of being British that we've seen the last few years,
and let's not leave New Zealand out of this.
He's the one, Will Ospreay, he sounds the least posh out of everyone. So give him credit. When you say another fancy British guy, I don't think that's fair.
All right, he's least posh and he's least spicy or whatever else he is, but Kenny did some wrestling. We saw some arm drags and blah, blah, blah. And then they got some heat on Kenny. And again, I said, Take looks the best of anybody to me in the match. And then I swear to God, if after they've got heat on Kenny and he's sold, if he didn't make his own comeback with the most ridiculous looking flying claw slam to a couple of the heels, but he made his own comeback and then turned around and gave Jericho a flat-footed cold tag. I was like, wow. Thank you. Why did he bother selling then? And so Jericho made a little comeback and he tagged Ibushi in and he did very little, and they tagged Kenny back in. And then they did their double backflips and a bunch of shit by everybody. And then Sammy, he did something where he got a 2 count on Jericho, because they're the only ones in the ring, because again, they're doing the thing the modern matches do where they'll have just 2 guys in the ring and everybody else will be just laying around watching. But Sammy got a 2 count on Jericho, and then instead of trying to do something else to him because he narrowly kicked out, Sammy jumped up, ran up to the top rope, and backflipped off the top rope onto the people on the floor. Why? How was that gonna...
He's loco.
He had the guy almost beat in the middle of the ring. These people were 20 feet away from him. They couldn't do anything about it.
That's a good point.
But then he got back in, did Sammy, and Jericho was up and hit him with the fucking code breaker or whatever. And again, then Ostrich and Kenny were fighting and everybody else just watched. And then everybody hit moves on everybody else. And it, again, it doesn't really make any sense, because then they stop tagging and they stop, having a one-on-one match, and everybody either disappears or is all in a mess together. And then Sammy at one point, did you see whatever they did to him or he did? He looked so blown up that as they were getting heat on Jericho, Sammy was just waving his hand in front of himself as the other ones were beating on Jericho instead of even making any contact. And he looked like he was sucking wind. Maybe somebody knocked the fucking breath out of him. And then Ibushi did some phony looking shit. And then when you had Coda and Take standing in front of each other, it looked like the Japanese Arnold Schwarzenegger against the Japanese Jimmy Fallon. It's just ridiculous. And then they stood there and traded forearms while everybody else laid there and watched them do it. And then I said enough, and I fast forwarded a few minutes and a few dives, and Jericho got the walls on Sammy, and Don Fallis came in with Jericho's baseball bat and hit him in the head with it, and Sammy covered him 1, 2, 3. And I'll say one more thing, and then you can give me your comments. What the fuck now? They're using the gimmick that the babyface brings to the ring to fuck the babyface. Maybe he should have just left it in the fucking back. Your thoughts?
Well, again, between Omega and Jericho and Callis, you have some of the brightest minds in wrestling history involved with this match.
Woohoo!
It was all right. You know, I knew what it would be and what it wouldn't be. And it was okay, not great for that. It was a fine 6-man AEW style match. And I agree with you. Konosuke Takeshita has a look, he has size, and he's good in the ring. And just like I said earlier with Swerve Strickland, he's another guy that they should really break away from all this other shit and do something with.
Well, speaking of breaking away, we couldn't break away from this show because it wasn't over yet. 3 hours in the pay-per-view, plus an hour or hour and a half of the pre-show, the bell rings for the AEW World Tag Team title match with FTR and our friends Aussie Oldham. And the people have been sitting there for between 4 and 4.5 hours, plus whatever time they came in before the match has started. And God, now that I think about that, Brian, if the pre-show started at 6:30, that was 3:30 local time. The people had to be in the building about 3:15 at the latest. Would they leave their homes? They left their homes shortly after lunchtime, and they were still watching wrestling at pretty much 8 o'clock at night. No, I'm sorry, 9 o'clock, because it was midnight on the East Coast. So they were still watching. They watched wrestling or were on the way to the fucking show for the better part of more than half the day. All right. Anyway, FTR and Aussie Oldham. Old Kyle Fletcher and old, what's his name? Ned Davis, Mark Davis.
Aussie Open. Do you now see what I said before when I said the one guy looks like Cash and Dax had a giant baby?
Yes.
He's a perfect mix of the two of them.
But don't correct me on their name, because Nigel McGuinness is calling him Ozzy Osbourne.
I'll correct him when I see him.
So I'm thinking at this point, okay, Ozzy both may look like Ned in their own way, but at least we've got a wrestling match. I'll take it at this point. And I thought that I was going to like this because I don't know how long it was, but if it was 15 minutes, I liked the first 10. And it wasn't because it was too long. It was because of what they did the last 5 minutes. But nevertheless, I'll digress and I'll put them over first. FTR were the smoothest and the most professional pro wrestlers on the show, with the timing and the basics and the pace. They're moving, but it's not too fast. They're using pro wrestling moves. It's not just a bad Japanese indie tribute match, right? Fletcher took a backdrop, actually took 2 of them. When Dax and Mark Davis, the big guy, when they traded the chops, it was like they meant it. And they were exchanging blows like a fight. They weren't standing there, I dare you hit me, I'll let you. And really the first when FTR are in control and they're controlling the pace and calling everything, it's usually pretty impeccable. When they started getting the heat on Cash and Ozzy were in control, there again, the problem is they're not over because they've had no serious TV time, very few promos. They're not a top tier tag team. Like I said, one guy looks like the other guy's delinquent fucking nephew. Their look is the team name is stupid, and their look doesn't fit both of them. Once again, the Mark Davis, the bigger, older, rougher looking guy, he's wearing a flashy green tights and whatever that the young guy with the weird haircut might look good in. But the young guy with the weird haircut doesn't look like he ought to be hanging out with the old guy. You see what I'm saying here? They just look odd.
No, I do think that and again, I haven't seen a ton of their stuff. I've seen a good amount, and I've seen their previous match with FTR from a year ago. They look like they should be in two different tag teams. They don't have a look that matches.
So the name, they're from Australia. Great, big deal. What's open about them? The name doesn't work. The individual names are John Smith. Nothing stands out. They don't look like they belong together, and they need some other kind of fucking clothing that at least would bring the two of them together. So point being, when they're getting heat on fucking FTR, the people are kind of like, because who gives a shit? Nobody thinks they're going to win. And then, after a long heat, Fletcher nailed Dax off the apron, and Cash took over and set Fletcher up on the top rope and hit a belly to back off the top on Fletcher, which interrupted the flow of the heat. It's like making your own comeback, but it wasn't even as exciting because it took longer, but he was in control. And then Cash went to tag again because Dax had been nailed off the apron, or he would have tagged, but you didn't have to do a belly to back off the top. So that kind of put the kibosh on the heat they'd gotten. And then when he went to tag again, they pulled Dax off the apron again and got more heat. Now I'm saying too long now. And finally, Cash backdropped Fletcher and hit the tag to Dax after milking the tag, so they got a pop. And again, nice comeback, but the crowd was tired. And Ozzy ain't over. So they popped for Dax's high impact stuff, but they weren't. Part of the great reaction of a hot tag and a comeback is that the people want to see the heel get the shit kicked out of him for all the shit he's just done to the babyface and for the heat that he already has. These people were not happy about who Dax was beating up. They just liked seeing his moves. So that's the difference. And then I wrote lots of back and forth, and I said they need to go. And then they did more shit. The heels did more shit to Dax, and they were tagging in and out. No, you don't need that. Get it done. And then tons of false finishes and more heel tags. And FTR hit the superplex splash, but then they did a spot where Fletcher dove on Dax, and they fell on him for the save. And then a four-way in the middle and another heel tag. So the heat's been done so long ago, they might as well not have done it at all. And more false finishes. FTR spike pile drove Davis on the apron. And then Fletcher dove on FTR. And then FTR gave Fletcher the shatter machine off the top rope. Finally, 1, 2, 3. It was the best wrestling match of the night until Cash hot tagged Dax. And when Dax made his comeback, and they didn't go home in the next 2 minutes, then they just started doing everything ever done to beat a mid-card tag team that the fans don't give a shit about. And this is FTR's problem. They think everything has to be a classic or it will ruin their reputation as the best ever. But the problem is The rest of the teams they're working with ain't up to a classic. They either can't remember it, they can't execute it, or nobody wants to see them do it to begin with. Because it's too much for people who aren't over. And this was a 5 fucking hour show. Oh, good God. Have I conveyed that in any clear terms?
Yeah, I think so. It was an all right match. And I think that is sometimes something we see with FTR. Sometimes they do more with certain guys than they probably need to. But with that said, they probably see Aussie Open a bit different than we do. They see a little bit more of the history there and a tag team they like working with.
Okay, they ought to look at it like the fans do. And the fans say, who are these fucking guys? I haven't seen much of them. I don't remember hearing them talk. If they do, it doesn't stand out. They look odd together. And they're not at FTR's level.
During the match, I almost thought they may win. Because I was just thinking, surely they cannot do another Bucks FTR match now. There's no demand for it. Why not do something different?
Oh, there's big demand for the Bucks against Aussie Oldham.
No, but at least it would have been something different that could have gone somewhere else.
Yeah, something different would be instead of kicking you in the balls, I'll fucking hit you with a fucking stick, but it'd still be a shot in the balls.
All right, well, I believe there's one more match left on the show.
There's certainly, but 3 falls, 1 match, 3 falls. For the TNT title, 2 out of 3 falls, Christian Cage versus Darby Allin, and this match went on last. And I'm thinking, okay, when I was first watching it, not knowing what would eventually unfold, I'm thinking, okay, it's Darby's hometown, so he'll be the hero. Maybe they're, and then as we find out, the finish had to go on last also. But again, the bell rang at 3 hours, 25 minutes into the pay-per-view. And then add an hour and a half for the pregame. So the people are 5 hours into the show before the main event starts. And in the first fall, you would expect that normally the heel goes up to put the babyface in jeopardy, right? Generally, the heel will somehow win the first fall, so that way the people, oh shit, he's got to win 2 now to the babyface to pull this out. But they did. And again, this was another one where I thought this is going to be the best thing on the whole show until I saw the last 5 minutes. They can't help themselves. Christian Cage is a tremendous fucking heel. His work is great. He knows what to do and what he shouldn't be doing, and he's not going to get hurt. And he's got heel demeanor, and he can put a match together to make sense. I'm sure somebody else helped him with this one. And Darby is a hometown boy, and he's the most leadable babyface on their roster. Remember, we've said it. When he's got a veteran that will control him and not let him do all the stupid shit, he's great. And he's leadable, and he has the charisma. But I honestly, and I'll get to it, I can't believe that Christian Cage, it was his idea to, or was he in favor of some of the things that were done in this match, but we'll get to that. There was a clear babyface and heel. There was solid wrestling. They didn't start at 100 miles for an hour. Christian took over with simple shit and got big heat from the fans. And then they came up with a brilliant finish for the first fall that was executed perfectly. When Christian was going to do something, Darby came out and foiled it and pulled Christian's turtleneck over his fucking face and head, and then jackknifed him while he was blind 1, 2, 3. And it was perfect, and it was brilliant. And now Darby's up 1 fall, and the people they're hooked. So I love that, right? That was fucking great. What'd you think?
I enjoyed the first fall.
And it was only a couple minutes, so they didn't give away everything that they had. And when they started the second fall, that's when Christian takes over and starts the heat. Because Darby has to fight from underneath and be the underdog and get hope spots and then explode. And Christian got heat on him, and it was, again, solid. And then he missed a splash or diving headbutt or whatever. Darby made a comeback. They got a few false finishes. Christian dumped him to the floor and bounced him off the rail. And then Nick Wayne's mother is in the front row. And they did the thing where Christian is not exactly a sex symbol. I don't know if I would have had him go over there and try to put the make on Nick's mom. He could have gone over and taunted her, but nevertheless, she looks like she's going along with it until he gets close, and then she throws a drink in his face. And then Darby hit one of those bullet dives, rather, where he just, like he's shot from a cannon. And then does the coffin drop off the top rope onto the floor.
Bullet drive is what Cash Wheeler calls the ride home.
Oh, come on now. That has never been proven.
The bullet drive.
That has never been proven.
What gun?
But what gun? So he hits the coffin drop off the top to the floor, and then one in the ring, but Christian raises the knees, and then he knocks Darby off the apron onto the desk. And then that's when it fell apart. Because then after they do a back and forth, and Christian looks like he's going to, they're on the apron, and he picks Darby up like he's going to power slam him off the apron onto the steel stairs, which I believe was the spot that they were going for. But it looked like as Christian was holding him, he realized, and he said something to Darby. He's like, the stairs were pointed that way. They'd been moved. So he would have had to slab Darby. Yeah, he just about did. He would have had to have slammed Darby on the actual stairs, not on the flat top, but on the steps. And so it looked like he was saying, I can't put you down good from here. So he just kind of slammed him off the apron onto the floor, feet first. And then he goes down there and picks Darby up like for a vertical suplex and suplexed him onto the stairs. And then they get back up on the apron, and Christian picks him up and does power slam him or body slam him off the apron onto the stairs. What he had tried not to do the first time. Now the guy's taken two of those bumps. And I'm right. Why? What the fuck is going on here?
And it looked brutal.
And right on the goddamn edges of those steel stairs, back first. That's not something Christian would do unless this idiot was saying, no, do it to me, do it to me, do it to me. And if I had to hazard a guess, I would say, because now Darby, the doctor comes to check him, and Darby gets counted out for the second fall. And the first bump would have worked, but he had to take the second one. And if I had to hazard a guess, I would say that when Christian got him up the first time, he said, no, this ain't safe. I can't do it. And he let him, like Darby just flipped out of it and landed on the floor. But then he went down to get Darby, and he picked him up and he dropped him on these things in a way that Christian apparently felt was safe and thought that will be the bump. And then Darby either gets up or is telling him, no, do the other thing. Because he's a fucking idiot, and he has to be protected from himself and his lack of goddamn sense, Darby. But Christian, after being requested to, I believe, said, all right, I'll do it to this fucking guy and see if I can do it. And that's what they did. So he took two of the bumps when the first one would have worked, or either one would have worked. But both in a row called attention till they fucked something up. Is that what you got, or were you even caring by that point?
You know, it's a weird thing when you watch a Darby Allin match. You kind of wait for what's the spot going to be where I go, oh my God, there's no way he could survive that. And then he does it. It's every single match. It never looks good. Like you said, it always has to be his idea because no one's going to say, hey, how about I just fucking kill you out there? Darby seems to like that kind of stuff. But it had gone pretty, when they were setting up the stairs, I was worried. And when they finally hit it, I was like, yeah, that looks really awful.
Yeah, and again, even if it was a great idea and even if Darby wanted to do it, when it didn't come off the first two times, drop it, because now you're just making yourself look stupid in front of these people because they can start telling that you're doing a variation of the same thing over and over again. You're obviously fucking it up. So then they get Darby on a stretcher. The doctor, and there's no count out. The doctor and the people just come and they put him on a stretcher on wheels and they're strapping him down. So we would assume this thing has been stopped, right? Because they're going to wheel him out. While they're wheeling him out, or preparing to wheel him out, Christian cuts the apron loose and unrolls the canvas and starts unrolling the padding off of half of the ring. Why would he be doing that if his opponent is on a fucking stretcher and he's obviously won this thing? Just stand there, right? But no. Christian is stripping half the ring and then goes to the top rope and splashes off the top onto Darby on the stretcher on the floor, which it didn't break because it's a real stretcher and there's wheels on it. But then Christian rolled Darby back into the ring. So now the doctor and the referee don't have control anymore. If Christian is about to win this thing, why is he wanting it to continue? Why is the referee and the doctor letting him take the guy off the stretcher that they just put him on and put him back in the fucking ring? And why, if any of this was going to happen, did Christian need to take any of the ring apart? Oh, the announcers are kind enough to tell you, apparently so he can pick the guy up that was on the stretcher and drop him on the hardwood. And that's what he did. He gave Darby his finish, the unprettier, on the wood with no padding or canvas and covered him and got a 2 count. A 2 count on the corpse, the fucking dead body of Darby Allin that had just been hauled off a stretcher, that had just been paralyzed on the ring steps. Now Christian gets a scorpion deathlock on Darby, a submission hold after a hospitalization angle, and his finish on lumber and a half torn down ring. Now we'll go for a submission. But then Darby comes out of it, and he does a coffin drop off the top rope onto Christian on the bare wood and gets a 2 count. And then Christian power bombs him on the wood. But Darby ducks out of the way and Christian spears the referee. So then Christian hits Darby in the balls. But of course, as we know, that doesn't work. We've seen it already tonight. Christian gets the title belt and he's going to fucking hit Darby with it. But Nick Wayne appears at ringside and steals the belt and rolls in to stand by Darby Allin. And Darby stands up, and now there's Darby and Nick Wayne looking at Christian. And of course, Nick Wayne turns around and knocks the fuck out of Darby Allin with the title belt. And his mother gets upset. And Nick Wayne dives out, and Christian covers, and the referee is awake again. 1, 2, 3. So apparently, remember back a couple of weeks ago that one time that it was mentioned that Nick was not altogether happy about Darby's involvement with Swerve, and the guy that's been forgotten that disappeared, A.R. Fox, when he was in there for a minute.
Yeah, he turned too, twice.
He turned back, and then he turned up missing. Well, Nick has held a grudge. Apparently.
I mean, surprising move. You didn't really get into him as the young underling babyface to Darby. Now they're going to try to do that with Christian, whose whole gimmick is what? He's a weird father figure who makes jokes about dead people. I don't know what the gimmick is exactly. Are you okay with that for Nick Wayne trying something different?
Well, I'm okay with somebody trying something different if everything's designed to either be short term or to fail to begin with. Remember, Action Andretti was a future superstar for 3 weeks. Then he disappeared. You didn't see him much until he started coming back every once in a while to do a job. Nick Wayne was signed as this heralded teenage sensation, this sympathetic figure. This is son of a dead fucking hero, you know, and that lasts 8 weeks. And then they've made him so meaningless and stupid and involved him in this nonsensical angle where people are turning on each other back and forth to now he's a heel. Shit like this used to take a lot longer to develop, didn't it? Where people would actually care about it by the time that it happened.
Yeah. I mean, again, Nick Wayne has just been established there. Now, they are in his hometown, so if you were ever going to get a reaction, I guess that was it. But in general, everything...
Does everything have to happen in everybody's hometown?
No, and again, Nick Wayne did lose earlier in the... He actually lost to Luchasaurus on the pre-show, funny enough.
There you go.
But I think after the match ended and they started doing the angles, I guess you could say, it took forever. Like, it felt like it was almost as long as the match, the post-match, just waiting. You were clearly waiting for something to happen, and most people guessed what it was, and it was exactly that, but it took forever to get there.
Well, and let's go ahead and start getting there, because basically the match was over when Darby got clocked with the title belt by his friend or ex-friend Nick Wayne, and Christian covered him, and 1, 2, 3, and Mama Wayne was upset at Nick, and again, as I mentioned, the first part of that match, most of it was great until the whole stare thing, and it fell apart, and then it got ridiculous with the ring being taken apart, and just that visual. It is so stupid. But then, Christian is holding Darby, and Nick is on him, a slapping him, and a punching him, and a kicking him, and then here comes Darby's friend Sting. And he was really walking with purpose. If somebody is just beating the bejesus out of you, and a friend of yours is coming to help, and they move at the pace that Sting was moving, would you question their dedication to your friendship?
Is this the first time we've seen Sting come out without his music playing?
Well, I think at least because it was unplanned. At least they figured that out after we've been screaming that for 4 years. But couldn't he move a little quicker?
Yeah, but everything else that's an unplanned running on the show, everyone had their music on this show, had their music playing, had videos playing.
Well, maybe he said, you know what? Don't play my music. It'll be a bigger pop when what happens happens. Who knows? Point is, he didn't look like he was goddamn highly motivated to get there and save poor Darby. But he finally got in the ring. And he made a little bit of an awkward comeback because the ring was a mess and the padding was rolled up in the middle and you couldn't bump safely with a bunch of people in the ring. And then he gave him a few pissy bumps, and then the heel stayed down while Sting walked around, I guess waiting on Dino Douche to get there. Because Dino was a bit late, but finally he got there and he got on Sting, and Sting went down. And then Christian goes out to get the 2 chairs for the concerto. And like you mentioned, at that point, I said, this won't end. It was so slow and there's no credibility and there's no realism because security or cops or extra referees or somebody would be trying to stop mayhem like this. There's no urgency. It's just same thing with the WWE when they do these long angles, but nevertheless, suddenly the lights go out. And on the video screen pops up the video of somebody starting up and driving a car. And I wrote, my God, now a video makes the save. Everybody stops what they're doing in the ring to watch somebody that you can't see drive a car, but helpfully,
I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to, oh wait, there's a movie.
Yeah, there's a movie. Is there Punch and Pie also with the film? Fortunately, they ruined their own surprise when the car, an overhead shot from one of their independent film auteurs that does this shit.
Darby Allin.
They had a shot of the car driving over of a street from above where the street had rated R written on the street. So, and you heard the people pop when they saw it. So they blew their own surprise with the fucking introductory faceless car driver video. And then Edge's music hits, which apparently he owns. His You Think You Know Me?
Well, no, he doesn't own it. It's a real band with a real song. They own it, and they will allow Edge to use it wherever he wants. However, what WWE does own is You Think You Know Me. That's why that was changed.
I wasn't well versed enough to know that it was changed. It was the same words.
No,
Just
it was
different people.
I think it was a different voice saying You Think You Know Him, not You Think You Know Me.
Oh, maybe it was You Think You Own Me? Well,
And Tony said yes.
You don't own me anymore. Nevertheless, Edge's music hits in whatever iteration or orchestration of it. And he comes out with pyro and the big pop and heads to the ring and doesn't make an immediate save. He goes in face to face with Christian, his old cohort, compadre, asks Christian for the chair. He sets up like he's going to do the concerto on Sting. So, of course, by now, you know he's not. And he turns around and hits Nick Wayne with the chair and spears Dino and spears Nick, and Christian bails to the floor. And Edge shakes hands with the baby faces, and the people are ballistic. And, of course, they can't call him Edge. He's got to be Adam Copeland, but he can be rated R superstar, apparently.
Yeah, they vacated that trademark, although he did file for a bunch of trademarks earlier today as we were recording. I think Cope was one of them. And obviously he has rated R superstar, I guess.
What about copacetic?
He has not gone for that yet. What about the Cope?
I don't know if he's going to be able to cope with this. I hate to see this move, honestly, because I know Tony probably gave him several $1 million a year for however many years. And I guess he just thought at that point, okay, there's new ownership in the WWE. Is Edge already in the Hall of Fame? Have they inducted him?
Oh, I think they did, but I'm not certain.
I think they did too, but yes, they did. So, but he's in the Hall of Fame already. They're probably, if they didn't take fucking Trump or Benoit out, they're not going to take him out.
See, that's the problem. They keep saying he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's not. He's like a third or fourth ballot Hall of Famer. You have to seriously think about it and wonder if he's there or not.
Well, but nevertheless, I didn't think as of a couple weeks ago, that's why he's worked there for 25 years. He and his wife both. And he's done television and acting roles. And now the biggest talent agency in Hollywood owns the fucking WWE. And just out of any kind of loyalty, gratitude, or future income, did Tony give him enough $1 million for the next 2 or 3 years? And I assume at this level, all of Tony's big-time talent contracts are guaranteed by his father rather than if AEW goes out of business. So was it enough money that Edge said, fuck it, for 3 years, and maybe they've just sold the company? I don't have any loyalty to these new people anyway, and I'm already in the Hall of Fame. They won't kick me out.
I think you're looking at it all wrong. I think he's a guy who came back, and for some of us, the comeback didn't hit its full potential or didn't feel all that great after a while. He just felt like another guy, and he's gone through everyone over there. I'll play you the media scrum audio on the drive-thru, but he said that they and he saw things a little differently. I think he's one of those guys they were ready to start phasing down. You know, you'll still be on the show, but
well, yes,
you're not going to be winning. He's going to go there, and he's excited, he said, about all the new opponents. And because of all the time off he had, there are a number of people he's never been in the ring with, never wrestled. He's going to be full-time. He's going to be on every Wednesday night at least.
Yeah.
And he seemed very excited about just being able to do all the things and be everything that he wanted to be in WWE right now, but they're not they're not seeing the investment in Edge the same way Tony's seeing the investment in Adam Copeland.
Well, but see, that's what worries me. He thinks, like everybody has, that he's going to come there and he can do the great stuff that he wants to do. He doesn't realize yet. I'm sure he can do something great with Christian, but he doesn't realize yet that anybody he's working with is either going to get hurt, or going to get heat with the fucking EVPs, or going to goddamn not be able to work up to the fucking level or standards that, you know, he might think that he should be used to. But the biggest thing was, I thought if the WWE didn't want to re-sign him for enough money or want to phase him out or whatever, why piss him off? Why not just retire and move into a little acting?
Because if you don't want to stop working, why would you do that? Just to make WWE happy? He's going to go make a bunch of money. They'll take him back at the end of the day. If he ever wanted to go back.
Well, the new ownership, I don't know if I'd trust that or not. Point is, in 2 or 3 years, when either Tony has blown all of his inheritance or has the breakdown, we don't know that this company's still going to be around in a few years. The WWE will be. That's why I'm shocked at a guy that spent his entire life there, except now, maybe, you know, okay, he's done everything.
He's going to be working with all of his friends.
And they put him in the Hall of Fame, and he gets to play with his friends.
Well, that's what it is. He gets to, for the first time in a number of years, he gets to do stuff with Christian. Him and FTR are very close.
But it's like a reverse Cody. You get to go from the top company with the best production and the most professional presentation. And then a lot of people are going to think, well, he just quit wrestling altogether. And other people are going to say, oh, look, Edge is, now he's with the, you know, the indie promotion.
It is a reverse Cody, because Cody was still working his way up. Cody was still on the way up. Edge isn't. There is nothing but a slide down for Edge, and that's not a shot at him, but his age, what else is happening in the business, you can't push him the way you would a Cody. AEW is going to let him do everything he wants. He'll work with a bunch of people he wants to work with. I don't know how good it's going to be. I mean, they were really pushing in the media scrum. He's going to be here every week. He's full-time. I think the more he was on WWE TV, the more people didn't care.
It was too much because it was special. He came back from a forced retirement. The story was there. The sentiment was there. The sympathy. And then the more you saw him go back and forth, the more that it was kind of
So they ended the show with the big Edge reveal. And, you know, it is interesting. I guess what would Edge have done if Darby had won? Did he still have the video queued up? Was he still going to storm the stage and have
he was still going to drive that car down? And I get, you know, talking about it with you, you're right. If he's convinced that he's done everything in the WWE, they ain't going to kick him out of the Hall of Fame. He's going to get millions of dollars from Tony Khan. And he's made peace with the fact that if the new ownership doesn't want to take him back for future projects as a legend, he doesn't need money. I'm sure he's already fixed financially. And he'd rather go play with his friends than have the come down of going from the big company to the land of Lilliput with all the unprofessional jackoffs.
And again, we'll play the audio on the drive-thru, but he literally said in the scrum that his daughter said, why don't you go be with Uncle Jay? And I think that is a big thing there. I mean, everyone has friends, everyone has family, but him and Christian literally came into the business together. They were best friends from childhood. They've not done anything together in wrestling in forever, because Edge was out of the picture. Christian
was in TNA for a long time.
A lot of different places. So,
yeah.
You know, again, I'm not saying you're wrong in a lot of what you're saying, but if you look at it from his point of view, if you know you only have a limited time, realistically, just because of age left in the ring,
yeah,
you've got millions already. You're going to still get millions, and you're going to be able to be around in the locker room some people you want to be around. I could see it making sense for him. Now, I do want to say they closed the show that's a tribute to Antonio Inoki by finding the one wrestler with a pelican jaw to come out there and make the save at the end. Good job, Tony Khan.
Good job, Tony. That's about the only time you'll hear that said this week. All right, so, okay, I guess Edge then fine. As long as his money is guaranteed by Shad Khan, that he will get paid if AEW goes out of business. And I think that would be for any main event level talent looking to sign any kind of extension or long-term deal with AEW. Don't let that loophole bite you in the ass. Make the money guaranteed by Shad Khan's corporation rather than depending on hoping that AEW is still going to be a thing in 3 years.
Again, a lot of people said just wait for the video game, wait for the video game. We're getting more and more feedback from people who are saying you have to see how dead it is. There's no one playing online. There's like 24 people. The video game's dead on arrival. And how much was that? 60 million or whatever it was?
It was many, many millions of dollars.
They said that was the difference between the company being profitable and not. Has it made its money back or come even closer? Does it have any prospect of doing that? Probably not, but
one would think that if the video game was doing well, one would be hearing that. And we're hearing the opposite.
That's right, and that is guaranteed by Shad Khan.